All right, Christina, thank you very much. Can I get the app with those little guys jumping out of the book? It's pretty cool.
You totally can.
Pretty cool. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for sticking around. Appreciate it. And again, this is case studies in AR healthcare. Let me introduce our esteemed panelists here. You already know Christina. So at the far end is Mark Greget. Mark is an entrepreneur and product distribution specialist in low vision technology field. Mark has many years of experience in the assisted technology industry and has developed into a leader in changing the low vision technology industry while raising its standards by creating new and innovative ways to grow awareness among organizations who serve those challenged with vision loss. Over the last several years, Mark has built his current entrepreneurial venture, LA Low Vision, now NuEyes, into the dominant market leader in the hyper-competitive Los Angeles area and is rapidly spreading worldwide. All right, Mark has successfully assisted in introducing 5 new low vision technology products and has quickly become a top distributor in his field. Mark. So let me introduce all of you, and then I'll give you a few minutes to please talk about your business, the application areas, and the areas in which you're focused. So our next panelist is Guillaume Campion. Guillaume has 10 years of experience in the mobile phone multimedia industry at Orange, a leading European telecom company, as well as another 10 years in AMA's mobile gaming sector, which makes him a true veteran of mobile applications. He directs all production and marketing at AMA, which has been certified as a Google super developer since October 2012. AMA's gaming products are available on almost all mobile platforms, with 20 of these products having millions of downloads. Next, let me introduce to you Dr. Oliver Aalami. Oliver is a clinical assistant professor of surgery at Stanford. He is the co-founder of Vital Medicals and focuses on finding AR and VR solutions to help surgeons before they get into the operating room and also during the time that they spend operating. Christina, wave. You all know Christina. And then finally, let me introduce to you Dr. Peter Killcommons. Dr. Killcommons serves as the founder and CEO of Medweb, a San Francisco-based medical imaging company that he founded in 1992. Early in his career, Dr. Killcommons worked towards his goal of linking hospitals through technology and expanding on DICOM, digital imaging, communications, and medicine. In 1994, Dr. Killcommons received a grant from Pacific Bells for this purpose. The San Francisco Chronicle subsequently featured the entrepreneur in its business section. Today, Dr. Killcommons and Medweb offer medical imaging, teleradiology, telemedicine technology, and Medweb's products are widely used by the U.S. military. So thank you all for sharing your afternoon with us. Let me start at the far end. Mark, why don't you be the first to give us a quick run-through of your focus?
Sure. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. My name is Mark Greget. I'm the CEO and founder of NuEyes, and we are extremely passionate about people with visual impairments, such as macular degeneration, glaucoma, retinitis pigmentosa, all these visual impairments that glasses can't help or correct their vision. We have built a platform on the ODG R7s, and instead of hearing what we do, we'd love to show you a video of what they do for the visually impaired.
I realized that I was losing some vision,
Wrong
which
one.
was confirmed by the doctor.
It's going to be the other one
Keep my life as
with
normal
Wayne.
as possible.
My name is Michael Samuel. I'm a retina specialist. I work at the Retina Institute of
Not that
California.
one.
I'm the chief medical director.
Not that one. It's the other one with Wayne.
You guys are getting 2 for 1 here.
That's right.
Nope, that's mine.
I can do it for you if you want.
Yes.
So it's Vimeo. And then it's the one with Wayne. So click NuEyes. There should have been another one. We can go with that one, that's fine.
Yeah, actually, this is a great one, so if you rewind it and play it, that'd be fantastic. There you go.
I realized that I was losing some vision, which was confirmed by the doctor as macular degeneration, but it is worsening as time goes on. This is a degenerative disease. I'm looking for ways to keep my life as normal as possible.
My name is Michael Samuel. I'm a retina specialist. I work at the Retina Institute of California. I'm the chief medical director for this practice. Macular degeneration is the #1 cause of blindness in this country, so we see a lot of that. It's a lot of what I do. Patients that have end-stage macular degeneration are really the ones that are struggling the most. They're the ones who are looking for technology to really help their lives.
I'm having challenges with general vision in the distance. At this point, I can no longer see faces clearly.
When you lose enough vision, glasses can't make up for the vision loss. And
I think that it would be just terrific to be able to read, sit in a chair comfortably. And now, of course, picking up a book and reading is just about impossible.
so our patients that have low vision needs have often been using these magnification devices that blow things up to a big screen. And while that is a tremendously useful device, it has limitations that they can only use it at home.
I'm interested in any device that would help me keep my life as normal as possible.
A device like this allows them to take this technology outside of the home to places where they want to go. It expands their ability to live their life a little bit more than they did before.
Glasses make smaller. Now this writing I can read very easily that says, improving your technique.
Wearable technology is really the future. It's the future for patients with vision loss, and this is a great example of technology that one can wear. It's mobile, they can take it with them to stores, to restaurants, allow them to help them at home and outside the home.
It would be simply amazing to be able to see things that are just fuzzy or non-existent, like seeing the faces of people, going to a gallery, and perhaps even seeing a movie.
I have several patients who have been waiting for this technology for a long time.
Glasses make bigger. That's amazing. Gives you a great feeling of power.
Access to technology is really important, so the easier it is for patients to get this, and if that involves us dispensing it out of our office, I think that's a great idea. It's all about getting the technology into the patient's hands. I have a number of patients that are looking forward to this device hitting the market.
Any additional comments, Mike?
I think she took it away.
I love that feeling of power part
Yep.
of that. So thank you very much, Guillermo.
Yeah. Well, thank you as well. So thank you for the introduction. It's true that I have a background of gaming, but a few years ago when we were able to get introduced to the glass program, we were one of the very few, if not the very first, company to be able to bring back Google Glass to Europe. We're based in Europe, actually in France. We started to play with it, to build up games, as we usually do. And it ended up, we had a lot of professionals that knock at our door because they wanted to have some cool application on it. And we said, yeah, why not? And so we got a surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, that just came in, and he wanted to make a live video. And he didn't told us that he wanted to make it live between West France and Japan. So we were very proud and pretty scared, but we had this first live surgery between two continents with 10,000 kilometers between both. And actually, we proved that it was possible. Nothing was perfect. So we ended up creating this specific company actually dedicated to build up healthcare usage around glass. And today we ended up having three main use cases. One of them is about nursing homes, especially for telehealth, between putting into contact nurses with doctors. Second one is definitely everything which is linked to training, because you all have a lot of training in the medical field. And the last one, this product that we just launched and announced at last CES is definitely, so we are currently pairing a glass, so here you have an ODG R7 paired with a smartphone, and this is definitely something we are, that we aim for emergency services. And actually we have let's show up a video that actually will show it to you live footage. So if you can turn on the video, yeah, YouTube link. So sorry, so far it's still in French, so my team wasn't able to have it fully translated, so I'll make the voiceover. If yep. So those are live footage. Actually, we were doing a training. This is east part of France, and with emergency services, we were working with them, and they wanted to get the system, so we went with them. And we were out of a training, and they had the real cases, so they told us to get up in the ambulance with them. And so we went over them, and the main idea here is that we wanted to bring vision and eyes to the regulation. So here, well, actually we didn't know where we were going, and ended up we were on a car accident. So you see those image, but we had to blur, don't worry, for those stuff. And so definitely the main idea was just definitely to share his vision with the regulation, so that the regulation can actually figure out if he needs to send more ambulances or in a helicopter. And as well so this is the regulation, so you just turn on the computer, and this is where you get live footage, and you are able to see through the paramedic eyes, and to be able to comment it directly. So this was, so here I was just discussing, and those are actually real images of what happened. So it's just for your information, this was just a motorcycle that hit a car, and the car as well, you had 7 people and 3 kids, and first of all, you first have to focus on the motorcycle, because he was definitely in bad shape, and actually he didn't make it through. But and then we had to focus, and the most important for use of glass here was just to make the triage directly on site for the 7 other people, and the 3 kids just know where to get out. So here, here he's definitely using smart glasses, and actually he fully forgot about it. And the good thing is that usually when doctors are so focused, and since they are not able actually to share all this data to regulation to start to prepare the hospital to get those cases. So this is why we have also sharing those images to get all possible data and to start preparing the hospital to get access, to be prepared to receive those people. So currently, we are working with 5 or 6 regulation all around France, and actually we are spreading it into Germany and into the UK. Focusing as we just opened as well an office here in Boston to be able to bring those kind of situation. Again, as I told you, one of our idea was just to be able to, here with the ODG R7, but to plug it to a smartphone to have it fully mobile, and having it to a smartphone as well, bring it more battery power and actually, and more connectivity to the point. So this is how we ended up. So, I think guess you got the image, but I just wanted to show that, it can really bring and help people into their work, even in the worst case stories like this.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oliver.
That was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, sorry for that.
So I'm Oliver Aalami. I'm a vascular and endovascular surgeon, and also was very interested initially when the early devices came out. And in the field of vascular and endovascular surgery, we wear glasses for almost every case. If it's an open case, I have to wear glasses for splash protection or magnification. If I'm doing an interventional procedure with, where we use X-ray machines, wires, catheters, I wear leaded glasses as well. So it's pretty much mandatory to wear something on your face at all times. So it's really not a stretch to make these glasses smart. And so that's kind of my passion, and helped co-found Vital Medicals, which is now Vital Enterprises. But the big use case where I feel, there are multiple use cases, but a really important thing in healthcare in general, or in surgical practice, is that all subspecialties are becoming image guided, whether it's orthopedic surgery, vascular surgery, cardiology, urology. Everyone's looking at images, and these images are far away. You're usually looking away from the patient to look at the image, to look at the monitor. You can't interact with that image. There's so many interesting things you can do when you bring that image to one of these, ODG devices. So that's where my focus has been, because I can take one of these now off the shelf and actually deploy it in my interventional suite, so that all my live images, when I'm performing, an angiogram, I can do an entire procedure just looking at this, which is pretty phenomenal, because for me, I can now focus on the resident's hands. So we teach a lot of students. So instead of looking at the monitor and not seeing what the student is doing with the wires and catheters, I can look at the wires and catheters and still, monitor what's going on inside the body by getting the image. So that, is super exciting to me, and is very easy and very can be implemented. There's so many other things you can do. Connect you to your team. You can review images, x-rays for the case. There's so many other interesting use cases that I could get into. I don't want to take everyone else's time. So I'll stop there, then I'm sure we'll have tons of questions.
Great. And let's, if you don't mind, Christina.
Yeah. I'll do quick for those who came in. My name is Christina York. My company is called ALTality. It's an augmented reality company, and our first product, Spellbound, uses the power of augmented reality to create amazing patient experiences for kids in the hospital. And so we use augmented reality to distract during painful or scary moments. We use it to entertain when kids are in isolation or bored during long hospital stays. And we use it to engage kids with their medical treatment or the procedures or their illness or disease.
Great, thank you. And Pete?
Hi, my name is Pete Killcommons. I'm CEO of Medweb. Medweb's been around for over 25 years, and thanks, Oliver, for a lead-in on the radiology side, because our first 20 years in business were primarily focused on radiology. We were the first guys to take medical imaging out of the realm of complex proprietary computer systems and make them available in web browsers. And as we evolved in developing radiology imaging and transmission and distribution systems, we ended up with the great honor of being able to do a lot of that for our military around the world, because we're developing not just the integration into various information systems, but how to bring that information up and make it available in the most convenient way. So as we evolved into telemedicine, we developed, again, a slew of workflows and tools for integrating with various devices. And the glasses, when they became available, we had the good fortune to start working with ODG earlier on and looking at various ways that we can now take all of this information from the various medical record systems, medical PACS systems, picture archiving communication systems, and bring them into the glasses to make it convenient for surgeons, to make it convenient for EMTs, and make it convenient for nurses and physicians. Our focus, since we already do all the imaging and we know how to provide highly interactive images that can be manipulated, whether they're in glasses or other tools, we also, besides doing that, we have been looking at telemedicine and how it integrates into the enterprise. And with the glasses, one of the main things that we see as a huge opportunity that we've now built in many tools for is to shorten the time that clinicians spend treating the chart. And so much of our focus, after having done video conferencing, telepresence, similar to what AMS has, and linking to medical devices and in live streaming video or ultrasounds or endoscopes and so on, was to look at how can we then take that information and deliver that to the chart and deliver valuable things like meds and allergies and stuff back to the glasses, so that the clinician's time is focused on the patient instead of spending, these days clinicians, if you've ever been to the emergency room or, you've been to to the hospital, You'll see a nurse literally dragging a cart around behind her so that she can enter all the information as she moves from patient to patient. Or in the emergency room, the physician will sit there and type on a computer right in front of you. We're trying to eliminate that, and I think we're moving along very quickly, and we're now working with a couple dozen hospitals across the country, evolving it to fit with their clinical workflows and their particular electronic medical record systems.
Great, well, thank you. So I'm going to start off with a couple of questions, generic questions, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. And you touched on one of them. So two questions. I'll ask them both at once, and see where you guys go with it. The first question is, in your customers, in your patients, how do your customers measure the return on investment, right? So, and obviously, or the motivation. So it's hard to put a return on investment on a young child and set them down in a procedure. But I'm curious, in the business world, right? We're always looking at, there's an investment and there's an effort, and what is that return? So that's my first question to you: is with your customers and in your sphere, how do you measure that return? And are there any, in this early stages, are there any specifics associated with that? Are there any metrics? So that's my first question. And then my second question, maybe somewhat related to it, is what's the personal use adoption curve, right? So when you hand a pair of glasses to a student or to a child, in the case of a mobile phone, or to a clinician, right? What does that adoption curve look like? Is there generally an embracing of the technology, or is there some kind of a time frame in which they have to get used to it? So Mark, why don't you start with those, if you would?
Those are two great questions. So for our use case, the return on investment is somewhat immeasurable. If you want to look at our competitors, so to speak, there's glasses out there that are about $15,000. And then what we're doing is usually when you're sitting, an ophthalmologist, an optometrist, sitting down with their patient that has low vision and are putting the glasses on, the use case for the surgery called the implantable telescope, they spend right around $100,000 to get 2 lines or better. So if you're looking at the eye chart, you're hopefully getting 2 lines or better. Right now with the ODG platform, we're getting 4 lines plus. So we're beating them pretty bad. And then the second one was
just the adoption.
Yeah, the adoption. So ODG has been just a phenomenal company to work with in terms of there are a few buttons on there that would confuse some of our consumers. So working with them hand in hand, we've made these glasses to be as simple as possible. So you can literally put them on and say glasses make bigger, glasses make smaller for magnification, glasses change color for contrast, and most of the buttons are disabled. So the adoption from somebody that's 10 years old to 95 is almost instantaneous. And that's why, again, we don't sell online. We do have a distributor network. We've got about 35 distributors here in the U.S. And a few outside of the U.S. So sitting down in their house or having the optometrist sit down at the office and really try them out and make sure they work for them is essential. And once they get it, which is usually quickly, it's usually a no-brainer.
Great.
Yeah, so about the ROI, we actually, within the company, we kind of created a sheet where we have all those questions. And when we start speaking with the customer, we are asking him actually to go on the field with him to see and actually to answer a lot of questions. Whereas, and actually we answer for him by going, following him during one day. And just to figure out, it's just time, number of people he's visiting, how critical he's doing. And we try to, of course, we don't have the secret of the right algorithm to make it right, but we kind of try to get all possible metrics. So time, number of kilometers he's doing, of course, number of cases he's able to follow up. And at the end of the day, we try to we just show it to him, because sometimes he thinks he knows, but he doesn't have clear data out of it. And so we just keep it, and we ask him what would be better for him. We just note it down, and then we go on a trial period, a pilot. And at the end of the pilot, we just took those new metrics, and we just compare it from the first one he said, and then we just go clearly and figure out, and then he tries to give us actually if he thinks it's a good ROI or not, because sometimes we don't have the secret about how critical it is for his company, or he doesn't share actually those figures. This is how come we try to get those. So our own secret is just to try to get all those data before starting the pilot and after, and try to compare those single metrics. So, and about adoption, definitely, well, especially we didn't show the video of nursing homes, but definitely those nurses are very scared when we're coming with, any kind of glasses, even those. But as soon as so we're always a bit scared, so we never delivered our system without being with them. So always the first delivery, we are always on the field. So of course it's more expensive for us, but we just want to make sure that they just actually really put it and don't say it doesn't work. And then as long as they launch it and actually they really see the doctor, usually, well, the patient go and see the doctor, but the nurse never sees the doctors in the nursing homes. And then so she's so happy to see the doctor. And then we get it, same thing, we get a discussion before putting glasses and after, and if you saw any benefit of it. And just we make sure that she had her first experience without having to push any button, just to have it, to make her go with us as much as possible, and to figure out at the end of the day if she's happy or not. And this is the only point, is just there's no big secret, but it's just taking time and being with her, and just to put it each step by step for her personal needs.
Great, thank you. Oliver?
So in healthcare, in terms of metrics, at least in the hospital, it's all about workflow. And really, depending on which workflow you're affecting and you're integrating in or with, your metric's going to change. So we did one kind of trial in a simulation lab at Stanford where it was around conscious sedation procedures where you don't have an anesthesiologist, where the physician is telling the nurse, give 1 milligram of Ativan, 50 of Versed. And then they basically, are trying to do this complex procedure. The patient's moaning and complaining, and, the nurse gets a page or has to clear the suction, and you lose sight of what's happening with the vital signs. That's just one scenario. So the simulation was basically surgical residents who had two scenarios. One scenario where they would perform a conscious sedation procedure on someone with a smart glass receiving these vital signs, and one without. The vital signs would tank or crash or diminish during the scenario. And we saw a benefit that there was, a quicker reaction time, quicker response time. So that's one example of a metric you would sample in that workflow. The example I gave earlier of getting the monitor, the monitor in front of my face, is really a comfort thing and ease thing. It's just a magical experience. So there you would, it's hard to measure procedure times and so on because two procedures are never the same. You'd probably just get a survey and say, how was that was that a better experience? So a lot of people have neck problems because they're cranking their neck, things like that. So in terms of adoption with the residents, it was fairly challenging. It's safe to say or to assume that these are very personal devices, I think, and being fitted and making sure that everything is adjusted correctly is important to have a really good experience. So with a lot of the residents where we took them through the scenarios, it was the first time they saw a smart glass, and for some it was a little challenging. They had glasses, and so I think to have the best experience, ideally you have your personal device, that you just kind of own, you put on, and it just fits perfectly. So.
All right, Christina?
Yeah. So the value that we think we bring in terms of patient experience are two ways. One is reducing procedural costs, a major KPI for hospitals, obviously, and improving patient experience, which is a little more amorphous in terms of measuring. So I'll start with the reducing procedural costs. Don't have any studies or hard data yet. We're starting to design those right now in terms of, there's some things that are very obvious. Can there more MRIs be conducted with a child and with fewer sedation? So that's obviously a huge cost, not only to the families and the patients in terms of emotional and trauma, but also for the hospital. Can you get, therefore, if there's less sedation needed, can you get more MRIs done in a day? Does it require less time for the staff? So there's a lot of like metrics in there that we can be A/B testing in terms of with our tool and without our tools. Can you get more sleep study preps done in a day? You know, how many patients can you get through? Can you get better results from those procedures because there's better compliance with the procedures? So that's one very relatively easy thing, I would say, at least that you can see how to measure it. With the patient experience, you know, this has really been an evolving trend, and you know, there's some standardized surveys out there that hospitals use to kind of measure patients' feelings about their treatments and their outcomes. But patient experience is also much larger than that. It's like the people you encounter in the hallway while you're there. You know, how hard was it to find a snack at a time you wanted to eat? Like, people's perception of their treatment and their healthcare encompasses so many variables, and so this is kind of an evolving field. And you know, we're trying to work with. It's very qualitative in many cases. We're dealing with people's emotions here, so very unpredictable too. So you know, trying to gather qualitative and anecdotal data, and working with some of the professional associations or certifying bodies like the Child Life Council, who their job is to really help manage patient experience for the children and their families. So working with them, and how do we gather this data? How do we, the best measure, I heard someone say was, I want one of our patients to say, if I have to come back to a hospital, I would want to come back here. Mm-hmm. And so if we can get people to respond that way because of some technology we've implemented, then we could consider that a success. Adoption for us is very easy. It's the devices the hospitals already use, and it's the devices families already owns and children are already familiar with. So we started with mobile. But for augmented reality in general, children accept it as possible. Like, everything is magical to them. Like, how a car operates is inexplicable. So, augmented reality is perfectly acceptable that suddenly, there are trees growing in their hospital room and they look behind their chair and there's a nest of bunnies or something, So they accept that magic. So it's kind of just, they take it in stride and they engage with it imaginatively. So we don't really have that issue in terms of the adoption.
Great. Get them while you're young.
Yeah.
Like that. And Pete?
So going back to sort of the basics of it, the business aspect, return on investment, I believe there's the clinician and the enterprise. They're two very separate things. Before you can get the return on investment for the enterprise, certainly you have to engage the clinician and have the clinician wanting to use the product. As a surgeon, by training myself, and I'll never forget the first things when I was doing medical imaging was talking to one of my colleagues about, well, what do you think of this idea of being able to pull the images up electronically in the room? And he said, nope, not interested. So what do you mean? This is going to save lots of time. You eliminate all that space that you're storing film. He said, come in my office and I'll show you why. And I walked into his office, and for $35,000 a year, I guess was the money at the time, he could hire a person who would hang all the x-rays on light boxes, and that was faster than going to a keyboard and bringing them up electronically. So I learned a big lesson that day, and that is just, that it's all about not just how effective is the tool itself, but how is it enabling that person to better enjoy their life. If it can shorten his workday, that might mean more patients that he wants to see or she wants to see, or it might mean that he has some time to have a normal family life. That's the first aspect of it. And so every clinician is going to respond based on that return on investment. It's about their time. Time is the most valuable thing they have. The enterprise, it's also about time, but they measure it in money. And if you can't provide an objective, and magical is definitely big. I'm all into magical. That's but the enterprise, the bean counters don't get that. But what the enterprise does get is if that, doctors are furiously, well, you'll have to tell me about your clinical experience. But since I don't practice clinically anymore, I can tell you that my colleagues tell me that they are just overwhelmed with paperwork, with bureaucracy, with all of that. And what the glasses have an opportunity, what they do for us in terms of where we go with it is to use the glasses as a new dashboard into all those information systems. So it's a manifold that connects to many information systems. While each of individual apps may be interesting, it's really the fact that using that manifold, we can probably cut 3.5 to 4 hours of bureaucracy out of that clinician's day. And that's time that they can now spend with the patient. In terms of adoption rates, again, I go back to that first experience. In order for people to adopt it, it's very simple. It has to be easier, faster than whatever it is they're doing now, regardless of price, because it's, for them, value is time. It's their personal time. So if with the tools that we put on the glasses, we're able to save them time, then they'll be adopted aggressively. And there's always early adopters, like Dr. Aalami, who will get in there and suffer through some of the challenges in the early going. And that's what that opens up the door for the main flock of clinicians.
Great, that's fantastic. Thank you. So we're going to turn it over to the audience. Anybody have questions out there? If you do, wave your hand and I'll come. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. This is a question for Mark, actually. I'm struggling a little bit with the glasses for the people with macular degeneration. Are you suggesting that the devices could be used for people with cataracts then, in a way? Or, with macular degeneration, quite often it's the fovea that starts to degenerate. So what are they actually seeing when they look through the glasses? Because are you just making the images big? I can't understand what they see. Do you see that?
No problem. Yeah, so for cataracts, that's not bad enough, which is great. So cataract surgery is pretty simplistic now, and you can go in and order number one, and 15 minutes later, your cataracts are out with something new. So this is more stuff that's degenerative, like macular degeneration. Perfect example, you have what's called wet macular degeneration, where you're getting Lucentis, Eylea shots, and they're trying to stop the bleeding, but it's as you progressively get older, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's just kind of how it is. So basically, for people that don't know what macular degeneration is, it's just there's a big spot in the middle of your vision, kind of like a blind spot or a scotoma, if you will. And what we're doing is we're taking their entire world and bringing it right to their face. So just as most people know or don't know is these people have good eye days and bad eye days. So how we're working with their vision is we're implementing magnification as well as contrast. So a lot smarter people than me, the doctors, if you will, have discovered contrast makes a huge, huge difference. So black on white, white on black. So you're giving the patient or the consumer the tools to adjust to their vision for that particular day. Again, there's no reversing their vision, but what we're doing is we're helping their brain process the words and the letters or faces more efficiently. So, perfect example, if you have cat, for instance, so you have C-A-T, they can't see the A. They just see the top and the bottom. They're trying to figure it out. Is that cat? I don't know. So changing contrast and manipulating it, magnifying into it, the brain actually fills in that A so they can process it further. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Great. Any other? Who else has a question from the audience? Anybody?
Can you tell us about, I think Guillaume mentioned working with some of the regulatory bodies. How about in the US, any of that legislative stuff that you need to overcome, privacy issues like that, to incorporate devices or the software into the current workflows?
That's a very good question. So I was on the board of the Telemedicine Association, and we're very much involved in the regulatory aspects and as well as reimbursement. And so the FDA currently has a pretty lenient attitude towards wearables and mobile devices. However, as soon as you incorporate any kind of diagnostic, for example, if Dr. Aalami is making diagnoses or changing his treatment plan based on stuff he sees in the glasses, then they get very alarmed. And so then it would have to go in for some sort of regulatory thing. On the other hand, if you're using the glasses for, secondary review, somebody else has already done the diagnostic review of an X-ray, and you're just going back to refer to it as part of a procedure, that's okay, and it doesn't require any regulatory review. The same for a lot of the information that is delivered from electronic, if you're looking at labs or allergies or you're ordering drugs or whatever through the glasses, that's a non-issue. As you get into any sort of specialized display, particularly radiology imaging, ultrasound or stuff like that going into the glasses, if you're using it for diagnosis, then you have to look at what are the resolution and what are the specific things that need to be included in your application so that the physician knows that, for example, it's using lossy image compression or something like that. But overall, I would say that they're not looking for the FDA. I'm not from the FDA. I just, I'm one of their customers. But their concern is always going to be about its safety, efficacy, and purpose. The stated purpose. So if the tool is used in a way that doesn't impact or negatively impact the safety or efficacy of procedure or diagnosis, then they're not too worried about it.
We encounter just a few small minor issues because we want analytics data back. So we just have to be aware of collecting personally identifying information. So HIPAA compliance, and in the case of working with children, COPA compliance, these things are actually very easily sidestepped, and you just need to be aware of them and make sure that you're not collecting data that would have you fall into that umbrella that you'll have to deal with them.
Actually, I apologize, I forgot about the privacy issue, but the huge is when you're using the tool, everybody that is part of the chain of information that the clinician uses to get that information has to sign what's called a business associate agreement, where they are guaranteeing that they are going to maintain the HIPAA standards for patient information privacy. If you're using, for example, and this is a big deal with Google Glass, because Google has elected not to sign those agreements. So if you're using a product where it goes into the cloud or some third-party service, and it can be okay as long as the service provider is also willing to sign and take responsibility for maintaining the HIPAA confidentiality of your patient data. So obviously everything encrypted end-to-end, and anybody that in the food chain that's managing that data also has to be signed on for culpability if there's a breach.
Yeah, I think those are really good comments, and because I had to bring it into a hospital, I have to deal with a hospital, security officer, and they're a whole nother, and it's all about convincing them that you meet their guidelines, and ODG's devices they can be encrypted. You can have hardware encryption, everything, so that makes it very easy. But we had to keep everything in the room. Instead of streaming everything, we just told our IT guy, listen, it's just going from the live, the x-ray machine to the glasses. It's not going out anywhere. And that helped us deploy what we wanted to do. So that's an important thing in the hospital. And then, encrypting at rest as well. So it needs to be encrypted in flight and encrypted while it's sitting on the device in case it gets, stolen or lost or anything like that. But it's all doable, even if the quality is not perfect. It's all about labeling, right? It's like the Theranos problem. If they're telling you they're giving you lab values that are correct, but they're not, it's a big problem. But if the lab values were correct, they wouldn't be in hot water.
If they'd only said the lab values were not necessarily related to the reality, then
there you go, they'd be okay. So it's all about labeling. So I think anything is possible. The FDA is our friend. They're here to protect us, right? So I very, as long as you have the time and money, it'll work. You'll make it happen.
Yeah, but important piece of that you may not be aware of is that the penalty, the reason why the hospital is so concerned is because the penalty is $25,000 per instance of violating someone's personal privacy. So if a hospital loses, for example, a hard drive with 10,000 patient records, 25,000 times 10,000 is what their liability is. And so there's a lot of pucker factor, which is another medical term, that is used when evaluating your technique for moving data from A to B.
Yeah. And actually, on our side, it took us maybe 1 year so we launched a product in Europe, it was 2 years ago. And it took us 1 year actually to go through all regulation stuff in the US and to review exactly as Pete said. And the funny thing, well, for instance, we have kind of similar to HIPAA in Europe, but it's over a European Union. But then each country adds their own on top of it. So as soon as you open a new European country, and actually, well, one of them, so HIPAA compliant actually as well asks you to get all your servers based in the US, whereas in Europe, we got a bit scared about everything about NSA and all that stuff. So we need to show, actually, even if our ODG or Google Glass that we're using, those are American-based devices, we need to show that everything are hosted in European-based server. And we're just opening up Australia and discovering that they wanted to have Australian-based server. So this is the beauty of cloud, that it needs to be in your country point. So I guess you don't really understood what cloud was. But anyhow, this is where you have to figure out it though. So definitely you need to take time and just actually review everything. Is at the end of the day, yes, FDA is your friend. They're here to protect you. So as a patient or as a, I would always be happy to have somebody behind me to protect me. So definitely as a business guy, I would definitely want to follow the rules just to be, not to get trapped on that.
Great. All right. Well, look, I want to close the session today. Thank you for the panelists. You all did a fantastic job. Please give them a round of applause.